And they're sending data.
I need a haircut.
Tell me about it.
You, me, and everybody.
Yeah.
Is it cold in Indy?
No. I just don't have a ball cap.
Oh.
He just wanted to rep the team, man.
We are live. And I want to say thank you for joining the stream today. And with me today on Sportscastr News Update are my partners in crime on the official Sportscastr NFL News Partners, my guys Joe Noobo and Ray Rauth.
What's up?
What up?
Today, we've got a great stream here we're going to be talking about the 2020 NFL draft quarterback class. Plus, we're going to throw in first-time season quarterback starters, guys that are going to actually play quarterback for a full season for the first time in their NFL careers. However, before we get into that, we need to talk about some information that came out today. Doug Peterson told media that obviously Carson Wentz is their starting quarterback. I mean, he's 27 years old, did the just second year of his 4-year, $128 million extension. I mean, that obviously he's starting. But a lot of people thought that their second-round pick, Jalen Hurts, would be the backup. But that's not the case. Head coach Peterson says that he wanted someone with more experience coming into the season, backing up Wentz in case he gets hurt. So he fully said, announcing that Nate Sudfeld will instead serve as Wentz's backup, saying, I fully expect Nate to come in and be aggressive and do something that he's capable of doing and become a backup to Carson. And then with Jalen is about right now just learning and picking up our system. He's another young player that we drafted there's a lot to learn at the quarterback position. So are we going to take it a little bit slower maybe with him until he grasps the offense? You might have to. What I like about it is always the unknown, and the unknown is how well a guy, I think, can process. And then once we get him on the grass, put him through some drills and put him through a few practices, then we can see exactly what those guys are all about. So with that being said, Philadelphia Eagles spending a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts to be their third-string quarterback. Joe, what's your thoughts on that?
I gotta say, looking back on this pick, it's really looking worse than we originally thought. If you'd spend a second-round pick on a quarterback just to be a third stringer. No, but seriously, I think that one reason that's not really being talked about, this is just a theory I personally have about the whole Jalen Hurts situation. What if the Eagles actually didn't want Jalen Hurts to be the backup to Carson Wentz? What if they drafted him because they wanted to keep him away from teams like the Cowboys? This was before they signed Andy Dalton. From a team like the Redskins. Maybe they're not as sold on Dwayne Haskins and they take a flyer on Jalen Hurts. So maybe what if that's why they did it? You know, just throwing that out there. And I also wanted to get Ray's take because we have been hearing from Ray that the Eagles offense is going to revolutionize football because they're going to use Jalen Hurts in a specific type, almost like a Taysom Hill type way. So I don't know, man. I'm excited to hear from Ray. I really am.
Don't let this nonsensical statement veer you away from anything. How often do we hear this? We've heard that Jarrett Stidham's going to have to compete for the starting spot this year against Brian Hoyer. You know, like Phillip Rivers is going to play for the next 30 years for the Colts. Coaches say things, especially with young guys. The last thing you want to do is crown a quarterback the backup position. I think it's very similar. This is a very similar statement to what Anthony Lynn said in the Chargers about Tyrod Taylor. He's going to be our starter. He's going to start as our starter and be here the longest, but this is competition. That's what Anthony Lynn said. And if Justin Herbert works his way and performs better, well, then he'll be the starter. It's going to be the same way in Philadelphia. If you tell Jalen Hurts, hey, man, you are automatically our backup. Hey, man, you are the future of our team. Hey, we're going to revolutionize an offense. You know what that does for a young quarterback? It just explodes the head. Don't let this nonsense fool you, Joe. This Jalen Hurts will be the backup quarterback. And I'm hearing a lot of stuff about he's going to be like Taysom Hill. Jalen Hurts is a much better quarterback than Taysom Hill. And there's no way that they're going to be sitting there carrying 3 quarterbacks when you got a talent like Jalen Hurts just to sit on the bench and be the third stringer. So that's my opinion on this. This is just the coach trying to keep a young rookie in check.
Excuse me. All right.
Gee, he's so disgusted he started coughing. That's how disgusted he is at this ridiculous notion.
No,
listen, well, hold on. So I can actually speak for a team like the Ravens, who we kept 3 quarterbacks as well, and we never even used our quarterback 3 ever. Trace McSorley. We drafted him in like the 6th round. He has that mobility. We thought we were going to use him in a Taysom Hill type role, but clearly he was not meant for that. So, and also I can speak about using another quarterback on the field at the same time as another quarterback. We tried that when we still had Flacco playing, and we put Lamar out on the field, and it never did anything. It never succeeded. Like they always knew Lamar was going to run with it. So, and Flacco wasn't going to do anything on the field.
Yes, but let me point out one thing. You didn't carry 3 quarterbacks. I'm not saying they won't carry 3 quarterbacks. They're not going to carry 3 quarterbacks and not use Jalen Hurts if they need a quarterback. You didn't carry 3 quarterbacks with the intentions of Lamar Jackson being the 3rd quarterback. You know what I mean? That's the difference here. And listen, Carson Wentz is a different quarterback than Joe Flacco. I don't necessarily say he's better than Joe Flacco. I kind of put them both at the same level. But when it comes to a mobility standpoint and things that he can do, that's where the offense can be a little bit different. Philadelphia also values the quarterback position more than anybody else in the league. And I know it sounds crazy to say that, but they would rather have 2 starters on their team than have an inadequate backup quarterback. The Ravens didn't draft Lamar Jackson to be a great backup to Joe Flacco. They drafted him to eventually take over for Joe Flacco. I think it came quicker than they anticipated. But the intentions was always for Lamar Jackson to be the starting quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. I don't believe that they have any intentions of Jalen Hurts ever being the starter until Carson Wentz gets hurt. And, at some point it's going to happen. That's the difference here. Is Jalen Hurts, what's the other guy's name? Nate
Sudfeld.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? You're right.
Think about the guy's name. There's a
problem. Let's have Nate Sudfeld, some guy that he's so irrelevant in the NFL. Let's make him the backup and make Jalen Hurts the 3rd quarter just so Dallas can't get him. No, they're gonna make Jalen the 2nd quarterback. They're gonna do things with him. He's gonna come in a enhanced version of Taysom Hill. He's gonna throw the ball more than Taysom Hill. And what Baltimore did with Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco, if they would have let Lamar throw the ball in that situation, that would have changed that whole offense altogether. I don't want to say that Baltimore is uncreative when it comes to offense, but they are uncreative. They're very
You're
good.
You're not wrong.
They're good at playing. They're good at playing to the strengths of their players.
To be fair, we've had horrible offensive coordinators up until Greg Roman last year. So that's fair. That's fair to say.
So you know what I mean? Peters, you got a guy coming from the Andy Reid tree, who and Reid's always been creative. He's an offensive mind, and I think they're going to be very, very, very creative in Philadelphia this year.
See, here's a problem. And I'm going to say this just for one thing. If you have a guy that's sitting behind somebody else on the quarterback tier and he wants to be the starter, and you're playing where you got 2 quarterbacks on the field in a Taysom Hill, Drew Brees type style, Last year, the Indianapolis Colts tried that with Jacoby Brissett, or not last year, but the year before, with Jacoby Brissett and Andrew Luck on the field at the same time. Andrew Luck lined up out wide. Jacoby Brissett threw that ball so high that Andrew Luck had to reach up to the stars to grab that football. And as he came down, the entire Colts nation held their breath as he was absolutely leveled before he landed his feet on the ground. There has been so much speculation going on. Was Jacoby Brissett trying to just knock the competition out of his way so he could get the stinking starting job?
Yeah.
I will point out, though, that this is old rodeo for Jalen Hurts. He sat behind Tua and could have caused a lot of ish. Mm-hmm. And he was a team-first guy. When he got to Oklahoma, right? Yeah, Oklahoma. They tried to bait him about it, and he's like, hey, man, I love Alabama. I love Tua. It's not Tua's fault I didn't play. You know what I mean? Like, he's that kind of guy. I don't think that when they go into that sort of, I don't want to call it wildcat, we'll call it quarterback wildcat offense. I don't think he's throwing the ball to Carson Wentz unless they're doing like a Philly special or something. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be intended to go to a receiver. Again, I think it's going to be that play that you're talking about. I didn't see it, but I can envision it. That's a traditional trick play, throw to the quarterback. No one's going to cover Andrew Luck, let him run down the field. I think what we're going to see come out of Philadelphia this year is going to be crazy, unbelievable. And the offensive coordinator has already alluded to we're going to see a different kind of offense, and he's excited about what he can do with Jalen Hurts. So saying that, that's why I don't believe, even though Taysom Hill is a freak of an athlete, he's still, when they have him on the field, he plays traditional football positions. I think what we're going to see with Hurts is going to be very different. I think he's going to throw, run, and go out for catches. I think it's going to be a very unique look.
Okay. Well, since we're on the drafted quarterback run right now, let's start at the top and talk about the drafted quarterbacks of this past year and what our long-term expectations are. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you're fans of the teams of the quarterback that we're getting ready to talk about, I guarantee you one of us is going to trash, most likely, that person. And it's going to start off with the first pick. All right, Joe Burrow.
Ray's guy.
I'm going to let Ray talk about Joe Burrow and his long-term expectations first, and then let Joe hit on that afterwards.
Cincinnati Bengal fans of the world.
Get ready for this.
I understand you're nervous. There's a Baltimore Raven fan beside me. You know that he is ready to trash talk Joe Burrow and this Cincinnati Bengals team. So let me get a jump on this for all of you Bengals fans, and I want you to listen carefully. Joe Burrow could very well turn into a great quarterback. And I've said this 100 times. He could very well turn into a great quarterback. But I believe that if you were to ask me who's got the best opportunity to be the draft bust of the 2020 NFL draft, Joe Burrow has bust written all over him. I'm not saying he can't turn out to be great. I'm not calling him a draft bust now, but I'm saying if I had to make a prediction who I think it could be, it's Joe Burrow. Let me give you my explanation. Then all of y'all tiger cats or whatever you guys call yourselves can get upset with me. Numero uno, he's going to play for the Cincinnati Bengals, the probably third or fourth worst culture in football. You guys don't want to win. Carson Palmer said that you guys didn't want to win. So be it. Number two, Joe Burrow went from zero, and I mean zero. He was projected to be a 5th round draft pick to looking like the best quarterback. And well, he's now the best quarterback in the history of the NCAA when you look at all his numbers. One of two things happened, maybe one of three things. Scenario number one, Joe Burrow during the offseason worked really hard. He went to the beach. He was doing wind sprints on the beach. While doing the wind sprints, he tripped over something, turned around, and saw a magic lamp sitting in the sand. He rubbed it. A genie came out, and he said, "Make me the best quarterback in college football." Number 2, Joe Burrow was at the gym. Big beefy neck musclehead came up to him and said, "Hey, I'll give you a shot of this. Nobody will see it. Don't worry. We'll screen it." Or number 3, Joe Burrow made improvements as a quarterback, but played on the best team in college football, played on one of the best teams probably ever in college football, and a lot of his stats were because of that. If a Cincinnati Bengal fan will sit there and tell me that prior to the 2019 season, you were saying tank for Joe, you'd be nothing but a liar trying to pretend like you were thought the whole time. It was the race to Tua. Who can be bad enough to draft Tua Tagovailoa? I'm going to finish with this. 2018. First year in LSU. After, I remind everybody, he couldn't take the starting job from Dwayne Haskins in Ohio State. He transfers to LSU. 402 completions. Oh, no, sorry. 219 completions, 2,894 yards, 16 touchdowns. The next year, 402 completions, 5,600 yards, 60 touchdowns. Joe Burrow could be a very adequate Carson Palmer-like quarterback in the NFL. But if you think he's going to come up and look like he did in LSU last year, you're crazy. And if there is a draft bust on this list, unfortunately, in my eyes, it's Joe Burrow. Mr. Joe Noobo, tell the people why I'm wrong.
You are correct, Ray. No, you're completely wrong on everything you just said. Let me tell you why. Now, listen, I've told Ray multiple times. I hope he is 100% correct. I hope Joe Burrow comes out and is just terrible. I hope the Bengals continue to lose. I really wish I wish nothing but failure on their franchise because they are in my division and I hate their guts. However, I am not as down on Joe Burrow as Ray is, as my counterpart over here is, because I understand, if you look at the numbers, it's a little disconcerting that he may be a flash in a pan. Maybe it was just that one season he just happened to go off because he had amazing weapons. But like I've said time and time again, it's not like he's going to this. I understand it's the Bengals and, recently haven't had success or ever actually, but they still have good weapons. He's not going to be throwing to bums out there, man. If AJ Green is healthy, that's a top 10 receiver, even in his older age. He's still great. Then you still have guys like Auden Tate. They drafted T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They have good weapons, so he's not going to be throwing to bums out there, So I don't think this team is going to be as bad as a lot of people think they might be. I do think they'll get maybe 6 to 7 wins, 5 to 7 wins around there. But I feel like people are expecting this team to be like 2 or 3 wins, and I just don't think that. So,
can I ask a question to both of you?
Please.
Lawrence, let me start with you. You sat through a season with no Peyton Manning, and you went on the suck for luck campaign. Maybe not you personally, but Indianapolis as a whole. Andrew Luck walked into that building and changed the franchise back to the winning ways.
With very little of the roster that Peyton Manning was dealing with.
Joe, you had Joe Flacco in 2018. He was not the Joe Flacco of the Flacco before. Lamar Jackson came in, thrusted you guys into the playoffs. Am I wrong?
Nope, you're correct.
And we've seen it time and time again when quarterbacks have came in and done this for teams. Are the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't want to hear, are they a better team? Are the Cincinnati Bengals, with Joe Burrow coming onto this team, an instant competitor? Because Baker Mayfield in his first year, when he finally came in, he gave Cleveland a chance.
Yeah. And what happened? They won 7 games games. The next year they won 6.
But
It doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. I expect Joe Burrow to have a Baker Mayfield type rookie season. Like he's going to have good numbers.
That's the thing.
But they're not going to get a lot of wins.
I don't.
Well,
and he's going to have more weapons than Baker had as a rookie.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is these guys come in and make instant impacts. There's nothing about Joe Burrow that tells me he's going to come in and make an instant impact. He has never made players better. He benefited from better players. And we saw that. And if you look at the LSU roster from 2018 to 2019, the guys who got older and stepped up and weren't really key parts of the offense the year before, you can see that he benefited from having better players.
That's fair, but someone still did throw 60 touchdowns. That didn't just come out of thin air. It happened.
Yeah, but I would have thrown 40 to that LSU team, and I can't walk up the stairs without being winded.
Have you seen Justin Jefferson catch anything in ever? I mean, the guy catches everything that goes within 3 feet of him. So, my opinion, Joe Burrow, he had a historic 2019 season for college. Historic. All right, 60 touchdowns is just stupid. I mean, stupid. And yes, LSU had amazing talent around him, but you have to admit that some of those throws that Joe Burrow threw were pretty darn impressive. I went through and I looked and I watched like the game where it was Tua versus Burrow last year. I keep coming back to that game. And Burrow outplayed Tua. He really did. Now, the question is, had Tua gotten hurt, had he not gotten hurt last year, would Burrow still been the number 1 pick in the draft?
I think the 60 touchdowns would have put it over. Okay, so let me put it to you. Okay, let me ask you a different question, because maybe we have a different definition of what a draft bust is. Because if Joe Burrow comes out and turns into Andy Dalton numbers or calls some Carson Palmer numbers, that's a bust. It doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback, but he's a bust. When you're a first overall 60 touchdown quarterback, if you're not playing like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Andrew Luck, Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, those kind of guys, Cam Newton, you're a draft bust. If you're not an MVP candidate in your first 3 or 4 years in the league, you're a draft bust. Because if you look at all of them, Luck never won an MVP, but he was a candidate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Lamar Jackson, MVP. Mahomes, MVP. And these aren't first overall picks. You know what I mean? If you're the first overall pick, you jumped Tua. Probably would have jumped Trevor Lawrence if he was in the draft this year. You know what I mean? If that's the case, then you need to perform. You need to be at the very least, because in my mind, it's Patrick Mahomes and then like Lamar Jackson. That's how close it is. You know what I mean? Like it's almost on a level playing field. I have to, until Lamar can win the playoff game, I have to give a little edge to Mahomes.
Well, considering Mahomes won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but that's the level you have to play at if you're Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. If you're not at that level, you're a draft bust in my eyes.
I agree with that. It depends upon where you are picked in the draft. So in my opinion, if Jacob Eason for the Colts, if he never becomes a full-time starter in the NFL, you still can't consider him a bust because he was a 4th round pick.
Well, true. And we discussed that. I know we're going to go into detail this after, but we're going to talk about Jarrett Stidham because he's going to be a first-year starter. If he doesn't work, oh my God, our 4th round draft pick didn't work. Exactly. You know what I mean? Or he's not going to be a superstar.
But when you're the first pick of the draft is a pick. Honestly, the first 5 picks in any draft, you expect them to elevate a team. Not just succeed in the NFL, not just be a starter, but elevate to put a team on their back, no matter what position, whether you're a guard, whether you're a defensive, a pass rusher, a quarterback, a wide receiver, running back, doesn't matter. If you're a top 5 pick in a draft, you are expected to be able to at least somewhat carry a team from your position that you're playing at. And to your point, there's a very good possibility that Joe Burrow will not be able to accomplish that.
And it's not all going to be based on this season, obviously. I'm not going to sit here in December and say, I told you so. You know what I mean? But in 2-3 seasons, then I'm going to turn around, because you won't know until you get to that point. Like Baker Mayfield, this season will be the telling sign if he's a bust or not. You know what I mean? You can't get on a guy his rookie or sophomore year. You can't get too high on a rookie year. You can't get too high on a sophomore year. It's that third year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and we know this
But
isn't going to happen.
What would be a successful year for Baker Mayfield, for example? Would he
well,
have to make the playoffs? Would he have to have good stats? What would be successful?
Wins isn't always a thing for me for quarterbacks, because I've watched Tom Brady lose a Super Bowl throwing 500 yards. You know what I mean? It's if it's wins is important, but if you can argue with me why it wasn't Baker's fault and show me the breakdown, then I can deal with it. His completion percentage needs to go up, because Odell dropped a couple of passes last year, but a lot of his misses were just missed passes. You know what I mean? It was just bad. I think that a part of Baker too, and he put this on himself, I'm sorry, he needs to back up his mouth as well. If he's going to keep running his mouth and not performing on the field, that all falls into that little pot for me. I think I need to see at least 65% completion percentage out of him, at least 4,000 yards or close to it. But I think 4,000 for a first overall pick in his third year, who has Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, and now Austin Hooper. 4,000 should not be out of the question whatsoever. And I think he has to win them at least 2 games, because great quarterbacks win you games. And we've seen every single great quarterback do it. We've seen Lamar do it this year. We saw Mahomes do it multiple times. We saw Brady, Manning, Luck. We've seen Roethlisberger do it, and a lot of people don't even consider him a top 10. I probably don't, but I consider him an elite quarterback. We've seen Joe Flacco in the playoffs win games for their teams. You know what I mean? And I have Joe as a second tier, not a top tier. But Joe Flacco wasn't a first overall draft pick either. So, you know what I mean? My expectations of him aren't there. Baker Mayfield in his third year now needs to win at least 2 games on his back this year. A game that they should have lost. Baker Mayfield needs to will them, because that's what an elite quarterback does.
So,
okay.
Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Joe, but we've been on the whole.
We got to move past this.
We got to move on. So I'm sorry about cutting this off.
We'll go all day. We'll argue all day.
So I just. All right. So next on our list after Joe Burrow is Tua, and I'm going to talk about Tua. I think Tua also. He's a top 5 pick, but he's a backup. At least this year, he's a backup. And it's not because I don't think he's not ready for the NFL. I think he could succeed in the NFL right now. I think it's health-wise, period. I think that sitting behind Fitzmagic, learning, getting fully healthy, I could see Tua coming in, taking over, midway through the year, especially if Fitzpatrick is having issues, where Miami's not winning. But I wouldn't see it before then, because they would definitely want to see Tua become fully healthy after obvious surgeries that he's had. So personally, I think Tua's got what it takes long term, not just because of his arm talent, but I think because of the only question is, can his body take the beating? He's going to have to be very careful when he comes to scrambling, when it comes to just taking care of his body, because obviously one hit can put him down for a season. And he's shown that can happen year after year after year, just in college, let alone in the NFL.
Yep. So I think Miami is going to panic, and I think they're going to put him out there a lot sooner than they should. I think they are going to mess up, and they're going to throw out Tua. They want to keep interest. I have a feeling if they do roll with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic, we know when he comes into the league as a starter, when he's on your team and he is expected to start, What happens? His play diminishes heavily because there's expectations for Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think the same thing is going to happen. I think they're going to start off like 0-3. I think Fitzpatrick is going to start that fourth game. He's going to throw 2 picks, and they're going to throw Tua right out. And Tua is going to have a good stretch, and I think I hate to wish injuries, but I think, well, I'm not wishing an injury, but I hate to predict injuries. I think it might happen. I think like in later in the season, he might end up, getting an injury just because they threw him right out there. And the problem with Tua is he thinks he's more elusive than he really is. That's one of the biggest issues of his game. He thinks he's Russell Wilson, or he has that elusivity when he doesn't have that, So I'm afraid, man. I'm afraid that the Miami's going to make the mistake and panic and just throw out Tua too early.
So I don't think Miami's going to panic. And I think if they do take out Fitzpatrick, you're going to see Josh Rosen on the field before you see Tua. I disagree with both of you. I don't think we see Tua at all this year. I was very impressed with Brian Flores as a coach last year. And I think that I think Miami will realize the same thing that we all realized. They're not quite there yet. And they probably need one more year to get there. But very much like Joe Burrow, I believe that Tua has bust written all over him as well, but for a very different standpoint. And Lawrence alluded to it. I think that Tua is much more talented than Joe Burrow. He's proven his talent time and time again. He's not a one-year guy. He's very, very talented. But I think that injury could be the issue for him. If he stays healthy, he'll probably perform great in the NFL and play like a top 5 draft pick. Injury is what worries. If it's a bust, it won't be because he can't play in the NFL. It's because his body can't handle the NFL.
I agree. I agree with that sentiment wholly. Just what he's able to do. I mean, we can see when he's healthy what he was able to do in college. It was like magic. So, he was obviously, before Burrow, like you alluded to earlier, rubbed the magic lamp and became the best quarterback in college overnight. Everybody wanted Tua, whoever needed a quarterback. So it's not like he was playing bad before he got hurt and ended this. He was still playing really good. It's just the injuries really, really caught up with him.
When he plays, we've seen a bit of sustainability with Tua to be able to keep up the same levels from year to year. It's unfortunately we can't see a full season of it, and that's my concern about Tua going into the NFL.
Yep. Okay, so
Agreed.
Let's talk about what I consider one of the surprises in this draft: the Chargers. The Chargers went out and grabbed a quarterback as well. But Herbert?
Yep.
Herbert in the top.
Justin Herbert.
What was it? Top
this
10,
year's
right?
Josh Allen.
I mean, come on. He's not even NFL ready. He's not even NFL ready, and he was the 6th pick in the draft. That's right outside you got to lift your team up picks, right? And this guy ain't going to be starting, and he's definitely not I'm going to lift the team up pick, in my opinion. I think this was a terrible pick by the Chargers. However, long term, they're not going to be having Herbert starting this year. They better not. I mean, just flat out. I don't care if the Chargers start out 0-9. All right, leave Herbert on the sideline. Leave him sitting there. Continue to play as you're playing. Let him kind of get his own feet under him and get up to the speed of because there's still a lot that he needs to work on as well. So, what are your thoughts, Ray? I'm gonna let you go first this time because Joe hit it first last 2 times.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert, I think you could say it's a bit of a reach at the 6th overall. I think too, though, that you also had a team in the Chargers who needed a quarterback. Phillip Rivers left. They needed to make a move. They obviously had no chance of getting Tua or Joe Burrow, so they had to make a move. Now, when you look at Justin Herbert, he played in the Pac-12. I'm not a big fan of that conference at all. I get that. I think they have Utah and Arizona. I get that. You know what I mean? But you know what? Oregon, though, for the most part, I got a buddy who's a big Oregon Ducks fan, so he kind of really updated me on this Justin Herbert kid and basically told me Oregon wasn't a very good team and he kept them competitive. That was his sort of overall to me. I mean, 3,400 yards. He had 31 last year. So we've seen a couple years of consistency. He had a bit of a jump of improvement this year, 32 touchdowns. What I really liked about it is in his 4 years as a starter, except for 2018 where he was 59.4, he was in the mid to high 60s in completion percentage, which is obviously huge for a quarterback coming in. I think that Anthony Lynn wants him to start so badly, even though he said that Tyrod Taylor is getting the spot. He made it clear there's competition, and if this kid can outperform Tyrod Taylor. Now, Tyrod and I have beef. People don't know it. He doesn't know it, but we have beef. Because I went to bat for Tyrod Taylor time and time again when he was in Buffalo, that he was going to turn around the organization. And time again, Tyrod Taylor disappointed me. And I can't see him, even with the weapons that they have in LA in that division, being able to carry them. And I think they're going to throw Justin Herbert into the mix too quickly. I believe that Justin Herbert could be, if we're going to do quarterback comparisons to what kind of career they could have, very Phillip Rivers-esque. You know what I mean? Good, get a few playoff appearances, maybe win a couple playoff games, never really be able to take you to the Super Bowl. That's where I see him. 6 overall was a reach, but I think when you look at who else was available, that's probably, if they thought that was, once you get down to that, once the first 2 quarterbacks go, you're kind of making that pick like a Josh Allen. Okay, hopefully this is the guy who can do it for us.
You don't throw darts though in the top 10. I mean, that's my opinion.
But if you need a quarterback, you do.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And
quarterbacks are always
Josh Allen.
They're always reached on. Yeah.
Unless you're picking the first overall or second overall, where you have a Tua and a Burrow. And some years you don't even have that. Some years you have the consensus
Trubisky.
number 1 and then everybody else. And Trubisky was a reach. And you trade up to second overall to get him and you give up everything.
With Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in the same draft.
Yeah, and Mahomes goes number 10. But again, people thought Kansas City was reaching with Mahomes because, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you never know how it's going to come out. I see him very much as a Phillip Rivers, steady. He'll probably be there a long time. They probably never reach a Super Bowl.
I just don't want to see. I'm sorry, Joe. I keep cutting you off.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I don't want to see Herbert starting behind that god awful offensive line that the Chargers have right now, because that will put huge shell shock in a quarterback. You do not put a starting quarterback in his rookie year. Welcome to the NFL. Dodge that defensive line, especially in the division where you got the Raiders who's starting to build up their defense. You got the Denver Broncos, who has 2 of the best pass rushers in the AFC coming at you on the ends, where that's where the offensive line for the Chargers is god awful at in the first place. They couldn't stop a nosebleed, their own nosebleed. So, I would not want Herbert starting behind that offensive line until they get that fixed.
All right, so I feel like the Chargers are very much so in a similar situation to what the Bills are, right? You guys know how down I am on Josh Allen. I think it's a very similar situation. I think Justin Herbert is going to be surrounded by a very good team. I feel like people are not giving the Chargers enough credit, man. Look at their roster. No, they didn't get the wins last year. They had some injuries. It happens to a team. But they were in the playoffs just 2 years ago. Now, I think Justin Herbert will come in. He'll probably play more than he should. I don't think they're going to sit him behind Tyrod Taylor, even though that's the correct choice. That is the correct choice to just let Herbert sit on the bench because he is not ready for the NFL. I still think they're going to throw him out there, and he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to be shooting the Chargers in the foot, just like Josh Allen does for the Bills. Now, the problem is Bills fans look at Josh Allen's positive plays, and they're like, look at what he does, but they refuse to see that he puts them in dire situations with his turnovers, throwing it into triple coverage again for a fullback. just a lot of things, fumbling, overthrowing. He puts his team in dire situations, and that's the type of quarterback I think is going to be in Justin Herbert. He's going to be carried by the Chargers team, but they'll probably have a decent record, not this year, next year, maybe the year after that. And Chargers fans are going to think Justin Herbert is the reason, but he's not. He's being carried. So there you go.
So I swear to God, Joe just trolls me. That's what this is. I mean, you sit there and talk about underestimating the Chargers team, and yet you got the Buffalo Bills, who has one of the best defenses in the NFL, that just got Stefon Diggs. You got them winning the division with 5 wins or something like
seven,
that.
All right.
7 wins. Winning the AFC East with 7 wins. I mean, number one, the whole East probably just wants to just get you right now.
Well, the North probably does want to get you too for your Joe Burrow slander.
No,
well, the entire North is okay with him except for Cincinnati.
I didn't say Baltimore was going to win the division with 7 wins.
All right,
that's true. That is kind of crapping on the whole division. That's fair.
Let's move on to our next quarterback in the draft, and we had to wait a while, but first round. Green Bay Packers
move
up into the draft and grab the great and powerful Jordan Love.
Oh, yes.
And
he is the man.
He is when they needed a wide receiver, when they needed offensive weapons to get Rodgers, they go and grab what they believe is Rodgers' future replacement. Now, I'm telling you what. Now, Rodgers came out publicly just this past week and said, you know what? I wanted to stay here with the Packers. I said a long time ago I wanted to retire as a Packer, but sometimes due to situations, things like that can't happen. So he's already thrown out the tea leaves saying, I'm probably going to be asking to be moved soon. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on Jordan Love? And his long-term do you think Jordan, he was a late first round pick.
Yeah.
But do you think that he can have a successful year in Green Bay? Or not year, but career?
Oh boy. So I think at this point I feel bad for Jordan Love because you look at these guys, man, they work pretty much all their life to get drafted to the NFL. So Jordan Love is good enough to get drafted in the first round in the NFL draft, and the team that chooses him is the Green Bay Packers. And that's fine and dandy. That's cool. They're a great franchise. They have a history of winning. They have a history of good quarterbacking as well. But the problem is you're getting drafted while their franchise quarterback is still there. And everybody was expecting him to still be there for a little bit longer. So Jordan Love is just in such a crappy situation. But I don't think he's playing this year. I definitely don't think he's playing this year. Maybe not even next year. I think he is going to sit for a while until they can move off of Aaron Rodgers. Again, we looked at the numbers, and it doesn't even look like it's possible until I think next year, maybe, or 2 years from now. It's a little more reasonable with the dead cap situation. So, yeah, I don't think we'll see Jordan Love for a while. You'll probably see him in preseason. He'll come in if he needs to every now and again. But but long term, I don't know. We have to see. We have to see the type of offense they put around him, 3 years from now. I think he has a lot of talent. He has a lot of potential. To be compared to like a semi Patrick Mahomes type talent, maybe there's some merit to that, So we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
It's amazing because as soon as we started talking about Jordan Love, I went into this yawning fit where I couldn't stop yawning. Just like, my body just repelling it. Well, as you guys know, this has been my story. This has been the story that I've been covering since he's been drafted. So I'm so sick of talking about Jordan Love. I covered it last night. I was talking about the Packers.
Yeah.
But I will concur with Joe. I do have some sympathy for Jordan Love. Like, he did nothing wrong. Poor kid got drafted into an awful situation, and now he's dealing. And I think there's been a lot of hate directed towards him, which is unnecessary because it's not Jordan Love's fault that the Packers are stupid. Listen, we've seen comparisons to Patrick Mahomes. I've more compared him to Marcus Mariota. Take that as a positive or a negative. I'm not trying to knock the kid. That's just more as I see his game style. The only comparison to Patrick Mahomes is his arm angles. He doesn't move like Mahomes. He doesn't make decisions like Mahomes. He doesn't have accuracy like Patrick Mahomes. So I really see him more as a Marcus Mariota, who's probably a comparable to Patrick Mahomes in that same sense of athleticism, what he can do. He's just not as good or close to being as good. First of all, as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, he won't start because they can't do that. It'll just the toxicity in the locker room will be too much. Unless LaFleur really is just sick of Aaron Rodgers, like has been reported. Again, unfair to Jordan Love, but very similar to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Buddy, you better hope you're good, and you better hope you compete for a Super Bowl. And LaFleur, you better hope you do it too, or your ass is going to be out on the grass as well. Because it's you didn't need a quarterback this year. What kind of blows my mind is our next two picks, Jordan Love and then Jalen Hurts, were both picked by two teams that don't need quarterbacks. Jordan Love, I was never high on. He was linked to the Patriots, so he's a guy that I followed a lot. I was actually bigger, believe it or not, on Justin Herbert than I was on Jordan Love. I should also pre-sake to everybody who follows Lawrence's channel here that doesn't know me. I didn't like this draft class at all. My favorite quarterback in this draft class was Jalen Hurts. So it's not like, there was big pickings. So Jordan Love, I think he's going to fail no matter what, because he's never going to live up to the expectations, unfortunately, that Green Bay's put on him over this whole sticky-ass situation.
Okay, so my personal feelings on Jordan Love, I think when he had some talent around him and coaching around him, not last year, but the year before, he showed what he can do. All right, when he's got a little bit of help, when he's doing it on his own like he was last year, he obviously was trying to push things. He was trying to pull an Andrew Luck by, putting his college team on his shoulders, and he was making bad decisions. And this is boring the heck out of Ray, as you can tell.
It's not that I've been renovating my house. I'm just sorry, guys. I apologize. I'm just exhausted.
I think long term, I think Jordan Love will surprise some people. But I don't want to see, again, another quarterback that does not need to start this year, not even next year. Green Bay and LaFleur need to make sure that they can hold on to Rodgers for at least 2 more years. That's my golden ticket, right? They need to hold. I mean, it's not like he's going anywhere anyhow because of the amount of cap hit that it would take anyhow to let him go. I mean, 50 mil, then 30 mil, I mean, so they've got him for those 2 years guaranteed. So does that mean that Rodgers is going to be happy the whole time he's there? Probably not. He's not going to be bringing Jordan Love to his house and be like, hey, let's watch movies and talk football. That's not going to happen, but I'm sure that he'll be professional about it. And when Love has questions, he'll probably answer them. When Love is stuck to him, trying to understand why he made a decision on the field, he'll be there to let him know. Love needs to be that fly on the wall of Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 years while he's still in Green Bay in order to be as successful as he can when he takes over the reins later on. I think he's got a chance to be something special, but he's also got the chance to be nothing. He's got a chance. He's honestly got a chance to be very much like Jacoby Brissett, in my opinion. Not necessarily nothing, but a quality backup.
Can before we go on, can I give a big shout out to Aaron Rodgers that I think has been listen, as I covered this story, all I kept waiting for was Aaron Rodgers' response. That's all I kept waiting for, because I'm like, this is when it'll finally get juicy. And the SOB had to come out and handle it with class. And, I think he was candid and honest. He talked about how he wasn't thrilled about the pick. He was shocked. said he's not mad at Jordan. He knows it's not Jordan's fault. He plans on having a relationship with the kid. And I just think through this whole sticky situation, at least Rodgers, at least publicly, is saying all the right things. So, and that's not always been the case with Aaron Rodgers in the past. So I do want to give a little nod to him.
He could have acted like Big Ben when they drafted Mason Rudolph in the second round. He's like, well, they could have gotten another weapon and they drafted quarterback, acting like a girl, as Big Ben does. Anyway.
Well, another guy, as Ray had alluded to earlier, was drafted, Jalen Hurts, to another team that didn't need a quarterback, and Carson Wentz. Now that's questionable. It's questionable. We talked about Hurts earlier when we first started this, with the whole he'll end up being the third string quarterback. But Ray has really high expectations, apparently, of Hurts. He has a lot of good things to say about him. Well, what's your long-term expectations for Hurts?
My long-term expectations, he'll be a starter in the NFL somewhere. I don't think with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think once his rookie deal's up, he'll get signed somewhere else. I see him as a sort of lesser version of Cam Newton. Again, I think that Jalen Hurts was the perfect pick for a team that needed a quarterback, not the Philadelphia Eagles, but that needed a quarterback, because you're not using a first-round pick. You're not picking him in the top 25, and you're getting a guy who could develop into a great quarterback for you, could turn into a franchise quarterback for you. When you look at the whole situation with Tua and then transferred to Oklahoma and all that stuff, he handled that with just absolute class. He shows the character that he has. And you talk about those character guys in the locker room. He's like that. So, I mean, from a projection standpoint, he could end up being like not quite at a Cam Newton, from a talent perspective, obviously, but around that, in or around that sort of play type. Again, I think because of the way he plays, he's going to fit a certain team and certain system. He wouldn't, fit in a team that's a traditional pocket passing team. We saw that in Indy last year trying to put Jacoby Brissett in that system. It doesn't really work, the way you want it. I've already discussed what I think Philly's going to do with him. I think they're going to revolutionize offenses, and I think they're going to use him in a very untraditional way, but still have him playing in a quarterback position with Carson Wentz. I also agree with you that having a guy like Jalen Hurts there, if Carson Wentz does go down, is a good thing. And he's not going to be the third string quarterback, as we already discussed. He's going to be, if Carson Wentz is hurt this year, Jalen Hurts will be the quarterback when he goes in. And that's my expectation. Again, I think he's going to have to leave Philly to really come into his own. Teddy Bridgewater is probably the best comparison. You know what I mean? Of who Teddy was before he got injured. A very good, solid quarterback. And in the right situation could lead his team to a Super Bowl, but would need to be in the right situation. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. But for me, he was the least amount of risk for a possible high return.
Anything you want to add, Joe?
So you guys said that Carson Wentz has 2 more years on his contract. Is that correct?
4, I think.
4 more years.
He just re-signed, didn't he?
Just signed last year before.
Yeah, he just signed a
for a long term. Yeah.
Let me look here.
Again, I don't get the pick. I still, to this day, I try to reason what it is. I just don't get it, because what I was thinking here is I'm like, well, maybe
2024
going on the end of, okay, is when it ends. Yeah. And so Jalen Hurts, so that's right. It coincides with Jalen Hurts' contract as well. So that it makes no sense. This makes no sense anyway, because I was theorizing in my mind. I'm like, maybe they walk away from Carson Wentz and give Jalen Hurts a chance, a year or two, see what he can do. But their contracts are the same. So I don't know, man. I pretty much said what I said earlier. It still doesn't make sense.
Like I said, this one makes more sense to me more because it was Philly. If this was another team who had a quarterback, it would have been like,
yeah, because they value the backup
Jordan Love.
Yeah.
It's because they value the backup quarterback more than anybody. They want their backup to be quality starter, and they would rather use a high pick on a Jalen Hurts.
That's why the article is so that's why it's so strange. This topic is so strange because They're saying Nate Sudfeld is going to be quarterback 2. They're not even.
That's him just talking. How many times have we seen that? Coaches,
Yeah.
you got to earn your spot, right? Because
Smoke screen.
Jalen Hurts can't come in and be given the backup. He's coming in as the third quarterback. Everybody knows that. You want that backup position, you earn that backup position. Trust me, this was all that was, because you can't do it. You can't look at a veteran, even if it's a 1 or 2 year vet or guy that's already been there, and say, hey, you're losing your job to the kid who's proven nothing in the NFL. And I'm telling you, if Andy Dalton wins the Super Bowl with the Cowboys this year, you know what I mean? And Joe Burrow wins 4 or 5 games, there might be some people in Cincinnati going, maybe we shouldn't have just handed the starting job over. You know what I mean? Earn it.
So someone in my chat, J Will 501, just said, do you think they might end up using Hurts as trade bait in the future, like in maybe in a couple of years?
Quite one of my guys.
Quite possibly, or do they end up using Carson Wentz as trade bait if they really like Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
It's possible.
I could very well see them, or I could just see them riding him out until he's a rookie and trading him on his 4th year, and giving somebody a 4th year and a 5th year option. They like backup quarterbacks. I mean, it's something that I didn't realize until I kind of covered the story right after the draft, and I was listening to the GM say, and they're like, how we value, and they were talking to a Philly media guy, and he goes, how we value the quarterback. They don't even call them backups, right? It's quarterback 2, quarterback 1, quarterback 2, quarterback 3. They don't want you to refer to them as a backup because they're all quarterbacks on the team. They really value that position. That's why if this is any other team but Philly, I'm more surprised than this. And they used a 2nd round pick. It's not like they traded up in the 1st or tried, and got a Jordan Love. They're like, you know what? It's a good value pick. I think getting Jalen Hurts in second, any other year, he could bounce up and be a 1st round pick somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's.
I didn't see Hurts as a 2nd round pick, maybe late 2nd, but I thought it was a bit of a reach myself. But I understand.
I know a lot of people had him in the 3rd round, late 2nd. But if you look at the last 2 weeks going into that draft, his draft stock was just rising. I don't think it was that much of a reach. I think it was less of a reach than Jordan Love, 26th overall, and trading up. I think it was less of a reach than Jacob or than Herbert at 6. Not saying that Hurts is a better quarterback. But
at the position,
but when you look at the draft position, I think it's way less of a reach taking him with a high 2nd than it is taking him in that top 10 pick.
I'll have to say that I will agree that where they picked him, because Philly really utilizes their quarterback position, and the fact that the reason why they like their quarterback number 2 is Wentz doesn't stay healthy too often. He did okay last year. He played through some injuries, but previous years he's out consistently.
He's not reliable.
No, and let's put it this way: in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, their starting quarterback or quarterback number 1 has never won a Super Bowl, yet they have a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah. Okay. So next on the list, now those are 5 quarterbacks picked at pick number 53 and above. After that, 69 picks later.
Nice.
The next quarterback gets taken off the board. And in my opinion, it's probably the best value pick in this draft. I didn't even realize how good of a value pick this was until I actually obviously, as you see here, I had to break down his film. I broke down his film, looked at him, and realized, oh my God, this kid might have the best arm talent in this draft. A lot of stuff that he needs to work on. But Jacob Eason out of Washington was picked by the Indianapolis Colts at number 122 in the 4th round. Now, obviously, I'm going to talk about him first, then I'll let you guys go. But Eason's arm talent is absolutely gorgeous. He could drop the ball anywhere on the field and make any type of throw that is needed, whether it is a rocket laser shot to get between defenders or a beautiful rainbow to drop over the shoulder of somebody on a fade route. The only problem is he can only do that when he's standing still. The only thing if he has to move to avoid a defender, then he has to legitimately stop and reset his throwing motion in a standing still position to get his accuracy back. That's why he's a 4th round pick. That's why the Indianapolis waited round and round and rounds in order to grab somebody, because they Chris Ballard flat said, I am not going to reach for a quarterback. We need one, but we're not going to reach for one. And I don't believe they did. Eason is one of those guys. I think he needs a good 2 years as well. Not because of his arm talent, but because, for one, like what I just got done saying, if he has to move, he's not very good. Number 2 is his locker room presence, his huddle presence. He's considered timid, right? There's a little bit of a worry that he won't be able to command the respect of his teammates. If there's anyone that could teach him how to command respect of his teammates, it's that guy the Colts went out and grabbed in Rivers. As a matter of fact, even the backup, because Eason will be the 3rd string unless Jacoby Brissett is traded. Jacoby Brissett has the respect of his teammates. He may not have the respect of a lot of Colts fans right now, but he has the respect of his teammates and his coaches. Eason, I think, if he can at least garner a little bit of more aggressiveness, gaining the respect, get that timidness out of him in the locker room and in the huddle, and be able to learn how to throw on the move, I think Eason could end up being a very good quarterback. Not NFL elite Hall of Fame quarterback, don't get me wrong, but I think he could end up being a very good starter in the NFL long term. A guy who could take a team that has a lot of talent on it already and take that team further, deeper into the playoffs. He may not lift the team on his shoulders, but as you say, sometimes you don't need those type of quarterbacks. Sometimes you just need someone who will not turn the football over and deliver passes when and where they're needed. Joe?
Mm-hmm. And I think, so I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I've broke down Jacob Eason's tape, because I have not seen him play. I'm not going to lie to you. But just from your description, it does sound to me like he is someone that could come in behind that beautiful Colts offensive line and just stand there and just deliver the ball, dump it off, hand it off to Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. Just let them run the ball all the way down till you get to the end zone. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacob Eason comes in, say, I don't know, Phillip Rivers throws 3 interceptions back to back to back, which is possible for Phillip Rivers. And then they're like, let's just throw Jacob Eason out there. We already lost this game. Let's see what happens. I could see it happen. And then Jacob Eason ends up taking the starting job. I don't know. But Jacob, I mean, to me, it says a lot when you're taken on day 3 of the NFL draft. I feel like NFL GMs don't value you a lot, but they do think you can play in the NFL. They do think you're capable of playing in the NFL. So obviously the Colts thought it was great value to get him in the 4th, take him on day 3. Don't have a lot, not a lot of chips put into that basket. If he doesn't work out, it's fine. He's just a 4th round pick. You took a flyer. You think he can play in the NFL. So if he does become something, great. If not, I think the Colts can draft someone else eventually, and they'll be just as fine either way. I don't think there should be any attachment to Jacob Eason if I was a Colts fan.
Well, I mean, Frank Reich and Chris Ballard said earlier, he's a 4th round pick. He still has yet to make the team. Kind of similar to what you were talking about, Ray, about, Hurts, they're going to say that this and this and this.
Sure.
They're saying that he's fighting with Chad Kelly to make the team. So
Swag Kelly.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that you are undervaluing the value that you got for him in the 4th round. Number one, he was projected to be a 2nd-round quarterback.
Yes.
And he dropped to the 4th. And I get Joe's point about how, hey, man, if he can drop down to those later rounds, to the 4th rounds, that means GMs didn't respect him. Well, you know who GMs didn't respect? Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady. The list is actually much longer of quarterbacks who went in those later rounds and have worked out to become stars of the NFL. So I never really, for me, draft position never really falls anywhere. His mobility is an issue. Absolutely. That's in the new modern day NFL. It's an issue, as we've discussed many times. I think the days of the pocket quarterback is over, and that's where maybe Eason is 5 years late to the party, you know, where he could become. Look, the kid's what, 6'6", like 230, you know what I mean? Just a big, massive boy. He's got a cannon of an arm and just the strength galore behind it. I think one of the concerns I'd have is I've seen him compared to Carson Palmer, which again, I think Carson Palmer is a good game managing quarterback who on the right team can get you to a Super Bowl. But I've also seen him compared to Brock Osweiler, which scares me. You know what I mean? I think that if I was going to give a prediction, I can't really look. He's either going to be a great NFL backup, you know what I mean, for his whole career, sort of one of a Brian Hoyer type of guy who's a great scout team guy. He's got the cannon arm to disrupt the defense, especially when he can't be hit, and he can just stand there in his red jersey. But I definitely think that he has the potential to one day become a starter. Once he becomes a starter, we have to see. But he did drop down the draft. I know a lot about Eason, and I did do film breakdown on him because unlike your guys' two teams, my team was in need of a quarterback at the draft. And Eason was a guy that a lot of Patriot fans were high on. I didn't know much about him. Again, I think he's a Pac-12 guy out of Washington, right? I'm not a big Pac-12 fan. But they kept telling me about this Jacob Eason. So I started watching the tape and doing the thing. And I think you got a lot of value in Eason in the 4th. Again, if anything, you've got your career backup to back up whoever your starting quarterback is, which is a lot bigger than people think. You know, the casual fan will just say, oh, a backup. But you know what? You saw what Brian Hoyer was when Jacoby Brissett went down last year. You know what I mean? I like Hoyer as a scout team quarterback as our 3rd quarterback, right? It's on the Patriots. So I think you undervalue getting him in the 4th quarter because Eason could one day be a bigger piece of the Colts team.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure enough.
So you named like 3 quarterbacks that were drafted in the 3rd round and later. That's it. Think about how many quarterbacks have been drafted in the 3rd round and later that have not succeeded. I'm pretty sure that number is a lot bigger. All I'm saying is that
I bet you that number is just as big as guys who went in the 1st round. I bet you it's just as big as guys that went in the 1st round. So don't drop that shit on me. And if Lamar Jackson doesn't get picked up by Baltimore 32nd overall, he may drop down to the 3rd round. You know what I mean?
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. There's exceptions. There's exceptions. Quarterbacks that drop because for whatever reason people don't think he's ready. But there's also the quarterbacks that are just average, that are just backup level. And Jacob Eason could just be backup level. All I'm saying is you don't have to have these expectations for a 4th round quarterback.
That's why I'm thinking the value is so. I agree with you, Ray. I think Eason's value in the 4th round was great. I think it was one of the steals of the draft, in my opinion. And it's even said that by a lot of draft analysts out there that it was one of the steals of the draft. I mean, they were expecting him in the 2nd round. It's just for what he was to bring the team now and in the next year or two. I don't think Ballard wanted to pick him up in the 2nd or 3rd round. He was waiting until he was going to get the value of that draft pick. And that's why Ballard waited till that point in time to grab him, because he knew he wasn't going to get the value out of him this year or next year.
And again, the expectation, again, I said he could be a great backup quarterback or he could be good. And I named a couple of quarterbacks. I could name more. Matt Hasselbeck. I'm naming all guys that have won more playoff games than Lamar Jackson, by the way. Right? Matt Hasselbeck.
All right.
Joe Theismann's a late one. You know what I mean? When you start going through some of those old guys. Mark Brunell was a late round pick. Rich Gannon was a late round pick. I'm not saying they got to be superstars. I'm not saying they got to turn in to Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott and Tom Brady, but you can have long careers and successful careers being picked in the 4th round. That's what I was getting at. You know what I mean? And again, he was a projected 2nd round draft pick. Jordan Love was projected as a 1st round or 3rd round. You know what I mean? If he didn't go in the 1st round, he's going to go in the 3rd round. So either a lot of those bottom GMs had a lot of faith in Jordan Love, or only Green Bay did, and then he becomes a 3rd or 4th or 5th round draft pick, and we're not having the same discussion about Jordan Love that we're having right now. The same thing about Lamar Jackson goes down that way. I mean, his projection was all over the board going into the draft, which I thought was ridiculous because I told everybody he was a top 10 pick. And to me, that's a draft steal, getting him at 32nd overall. You know what I mean? And people were just ridiculous to let him drop that far off the board. And I was one of those guys who said, if Lamar Jackson doesn't make it or makes it out of the 1st round, you don't even have to use a 2nd on him because he would have just kept falling. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean in this draft. Jacob Eason, there were like smart Patriot fans, ones that I consider smart Patriot fans, that wanted the Patriots to take him with the 26th pick or whatever pick we had, the 21st pick, wanted us to take Jacob Eason. Now, I thought they were out of their minds because he can't move, because Tom Brady's more athletic than he is, and that's an issue. You know what I mean? And that is Jacob Eason's issue, is his athleticism. Because when it comes to arm strength and accuracy, the kid's got a cannon on him.
Oh, yeah.
And he can hit not just long, he can hit things down the field. But if he doesn't improve that athleticism, then he'll just be your great backup and never form into a starter to be able to lead the team.
Say, don't get me wrong. Eason can actually run. He's got the side. He's got the athleticism to run around. He just can't throw when he's running. That's his biggest problem. He just cannot throw when if a defensive end or an outside linebacker's got a beat on him, and he decides he has to pull that ball down and scramble to gain a little bit of extra time to be able to throw that football and throws that, it's going to probably be an interception or at least an incompletion. Now, if he pulls it down and takes off running forward, he could actually do so. If you watch his play, he's got a little bit of mobility. It's just he's not accurate when he's, literally just takes one step to the side, throws the football, and it's a horrible pass. I pointed it out on one of my breakdowns on him just a couple weeks ago, and it's just something he's going to have to work on, because I think he relies so much on every little intricacy of his throwing motion in order to make an accurate pass. Every time he throws the football, it looks exactly the same when he's standing still. And it's like picture perfect. So it's almost as though if he can't be that picture perfect when he throws it, it throws it all off. We've talked enough about Eason. Let's move on. The next quarterback.
I swear, let me tell you something. Let me tell you guys something. I am not as passionate about these topics as I appear. I just get like this because it makes for good TV or whatever, I think it makes them more entertaining. But anyway, I really don't care if Jacob Eason is, trash or great, or I really don't care. But anyway, it's a lot of fun to talk about for sure.
We got two more quarterbacks.
Good luck, Colts fans. I wish nothing but the best for you guys.
A lot of us have a lot of hope, for him. We're going to talk about two more quarterbacks. One's James Morgan. I'm going to go ahead and let Ray start off with James Morgan. Number 125, 3 picks later to the New York Jets.
I really wish you would have started with me. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know shit about Morgan or from. I just know the names. I have nothing of value to add for those guys. There's going to be no passion out of me on this one.
A lot of people like Jake Fromm a lot. I don't have opinion.
I think we're going to end up skipping you.
Yeah. Sorry, James, but I know nothing about you. I barely know anything about Jake Fromm either. All I know is that a lot of people were high on Jake Fromm. And a lot of people were saying that for the Bills to get him so late, hey, maybe he'll take Josh Allen's spot. You never know.
Yeah, I know that Jake Fromm was a guy that got thrown around about the Patriots having interest in him.
Right.
I didn't see it. I didn't see why. I'll admit though, I didn't do a whole lot of stuff. He's a bit of a little guy. He's only 6'2", which I know sounds ridiculous when I say little guy because like I'm 6 foot, you know what I mean? But for a quarterback, 6'2" is short, right? He's not very big. I think he's only like 210 pounds or 220 maybe. I don't want to undercut the guy. I know he's not close to 230. I don't know much about him. I think he had a decent completion percentage and it like just fell off the map his second year. That's my knowledge.
Lot of people, his arm strength is a big thing that people have criticism about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his completion rate and arm strength. That's about as much as you're going to get out of me about Jake Fromm. He's small and not strong.
Fair enough.
Well,
so he takes Josh Allen's job, right?
To be fair, he's used to taking other people's jobs.
Yeah, that's true.
He took Jacob Eason's job.
Yeah,
Eason got hurt. Fromm took over. Eason then transferred right out of there into Washington.
Maybe it's a good idea that we don't have Nick on one of our streams because I'll just be crapping on his team the entire time. Anyway,
but this and that, like in the last few years, like Georgia's become like the cesspool for quarterbacks, though. You know what I mean? Like it really, if you want to ruin your career, go to Georgia, and that'll just, you know what I mean? Like that'll just tank any chance you have of being a reputable. Like, because Jake Fromm. Or Eason lost his job to Fromm, but somebody else lost their job to Eason, like going into that. Like that's this whole train of losing in Georgia. And I just who is it? It's somebody else that people liked. And it's just this, I don't know, just this crazy, it's just a place like where you just go to screw yourself, I guess. I don't know.
All right, so we're going to end
the Jets of NCAA.
Yeah, we're going to talk about not necessarily quarterbacks that were drafted, but first-year starters or first-year quarterbacks that will get their first start for real this upcoming season. And since a lot of us are obviously me and Joe know what Ray has to say about Jarrett Stidham. But I have a question on one of the question people here. J Will 501 wants to know: do you think the Patriots would trade for Brissett?
I do. We've talked about that in the past, right? I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. I'm not necessarily a big fan of Jacoby Brissett as a starting quarterback. I've seen him start for the Patriots. He had a game and a half with us. He almost blew a game. We had a huge lead in Miami. That game almost got blown. So he's at 2.5 starts, almost got blown. We beat Houston 21-0. He didn't throw a touchdown. He ran one in, and then we got smacked around by the Buffalo Bills the next week. Again, I was happy to see Jacoby have some success in Indianapolis. It doesn't surprise me that you replaced him with Phillip Rivers. Bill Parcells loves Jacoby Brissett. And Bill Belichick does, respects a lot of what Bill Parcells says. Wouldn't surprise me if it was a mid-season trade, especially if Jarrett Stidham isn't working out. And then there's also this UDFA named Brian Luricki, who they brought in, who at first I really didn't care too much about, but the more research I've done on him, I wonder if he's actually in there to compete with Brian Hoyer as the backup quarterback for this year. So it's he doesn't have great stats, but he's a locker room guy, and he was a leader. Bye, Joe. And yeah,
he'll be back.
Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't surprise me at all though if the Patriots did.
So go ahead and talk about Stidham now. What are your expectations for Jarrett?
I think Jarrett Stidham is going to be just a fantastic game manager for us. So no different than you guys have seen with Tom Brady. No, he's going to manage the game. I think the Patriots are going to be a run-heavy team. I like the kid. I think he's pretty good. I think that he could have some success. My expectations are very low for the Patriots this year. I've got them winning about 8 games, realistically 10 games if everything goes absolutely perfect. But it's where it is. I mean, Buffalo's going to win the division with 5 games, so the Patriots will probably win 3. I think that Jarrett Stidham again is another guy who he did the Joe opposite of Joe Burrow. He was projected to be a first-round draft pick in 2018, had an awful 2018 season. In 2019, got drafted in the 4th round, right? Took a big step backwards. Very similar to what Jordan Love looked like in Utah this year. If it would have been this year, maybe the Packers trade up and take Stidham. I think the Patriots were hoping to have Brady for another year or so and let him sit a little behind, but apparently they like him. That's everything I read. And they had every opportunity to draft a quarterback in this draft and didn't. They could have taken Jordan Love before the Packers traded up for him. They could have taken Eason. They could have taken They could have taken Jalen Hurts. There was a lot of quarterbacks after Tua and Herbert that they could have picked, and they decided to go with Jarrett Stidham. So there's obviously something the team likes about him.
Joe, any question or any?
All right. So I think Bill Belichick is biting off a little more that he can chew. I think so. I think he's trying to prove that he can win with anybody. Okay. And I get this whole thing about Jarrett Stidham that he had some good college numbers, and he looks like he can step in. And like you said, you don't even need him to be like the main reason you win, right? You can just run the ball, play good defense. It's the old Ravens formula, like we've talked about. It's possible. It's very possible that that's what they just fine and dandy, but I don't think that Jarrett Stidham this season, regardless of what they do, I don't think that's going to stop you from wanting to draft a quarterback very soon, whether that's next season or the year after that. I don't know. I think Bill Belichick is I don't agree with him on this one, I got to say. And I usually think that Bill Belichick makes great decisions. Well, on the field, maybe not, certain other things, but
it is. But it's a tough thing to say, right? It's tough to turn around and say, yeah, Joe Burrow's going to be a superstar, and then turn around and say Belichick's making a mistake when really we don't know how either guy is going to perform in the NFL. Just like I say, he's got draft bust written all over him, right? There was a lot of people who thought I was insane when I said they need to draft Lamar Jackson. There was a lot of people laughing at the Ravens when they drafted Lamar Jackson, right? Oh, he's a glorified running back. His game will never translate to the NFL. I don't care if Lamar Jackson is a glorified running back. The guy does it better than no one could stop him. Who cares what he is? Who cares what he's labeled? If you're winning football games, play and call him whatever you want, because all I'm seeing is winning football games. And that's my issue is I need to see Jarrett. I won't make an assessment on Jarrett Stidham until I actually watch the kid play.
Here's my one comment about Stidham and Belichick. Stidham, I think, could be a decent game manager, like you're saying. He's not going to be asked to do much in this because this team is going to lean heavily on that defense and the run game and short, quick passes. That's exactly what they were leaning on last year. That's what they're going to lean on this year. And on the outside of what Joe was talking about, Belichick not going after a quarterback, here's the deal. I'm going to tell you right now that Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm, all these guys, they are thanking Bill Belichick for not selecting them in round 1 or round 2. Because Bill Belichick has an awful history with his draft picks in the early rounds. So they're actually, because they weren't picked by Belichick early in the draft, they'll feel as though they have more of a chance to succeed in the NFL. Because how many first-round picks, Ray, in the last 15 years has Belichick picked that have worked out for New England?
Chandler Jones, Devin McCourty, Dante Hightower. Don't forget too, in the last 15 years, we probably traded out of the first round 3 times, and we've been suspended twice and lost picks in the last 15 years in the first round. But Hightower, Chandler Jones, Devin McCourty are probably the big 3 that popped in my head. I'm not prepared to call Sony Michel a bust yet because he had a great rookie year, had a slump of a sophomore. This year will be telling for him. I'm not prepared to write off Isaiah Wynn either. I know there's somebody else, and I know that Patriot fans are jumping up and down right now, and I'm drawing a complete blank on what it is. But I mean, you know what? That's first round. Second round, yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo worked out pretty well in the NFL. Yes. You know what I mean? Yes, I think so far, Bill Belichick, in evaluating quarterback talent, he's drafted Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo. That's pretty good quarterback evaluations. Those are 2 guys that have been to Super Bowls. You know what I mean? So it's
like 15 years apart though on the draft.
Yeah, and that's the only 2 he's had to draft.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, honestly,
you know what I mean? I mean, Jacoby Brissett was a starting quarterback in the NFL last year. Don't
get me wrong. Bill Belichick is awesome at mid rounds. Awesome at mid round. He grabs great. I'm not going to say great talent because I'm going to say what he does in the mid rounds is get guys who fit his system at an elite level in his system in the mid rounds.
So let me here's how I look at things, right? Tell me who you would rather have on your team. Would you rather have the quarterback who completed 246 completions, 3,100 yards with a 151 QB rating, 18 touchdowns? Or would you rather the guy who completed 219 for 2,800 yards, a 133 rating, and 16 touchdowns? When you look at those 2, I give you those 2 sets of numbers. Like, which guy are you leaning more towards?
To be honest with you, I'd have to know completion percentage. I need to know what was his interceptions.
18. The first guy is 18 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. The second guy is 16 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Completion percentage is 66.5% for the first guy, 57.8% for the second guy.
I'll take the first guy then.
Okay, so you drafted Jarrett Stidham, which means Joe would have had the second overall pick, and he would have taken Joe Burrow. Those are their 2018 numbers.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But did Jarrett Stidham go out and throw 60 touchdowns next year? No, he did not.
But I just compared numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay,
here's what I'm saying.
Let me ask you something. If you have the number 1 overall pick, you need a quarterback, and you see a guy that threw 60 touchdowns, you would not take a chance on him and say he's worth the number 1 overall pick.
Still taking Tua over Joe Burrow. Every day of the week, I'm taking Tua over Joe Burrow.
Completion percentage is a big deal, in my opinion. If you can get mid to upper 60s in the completion percentage over upper mid 50s, I mean, that's a 10% completion percentage.
Listen. If you think that Joe Burrow's 76% completion percentage that jumped from his 57 the year before is because of Joe fucking Burrow, that's an awful evaluation. Those are people. That means he
can't put in the work to become a better quarterback.
7 out of 10 times he's going to throw a perp. So he's going to come in and be better than Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, every best passer to ever come in the game. No, he played on a freaking amazing team that set records this year for draft picks.
So first of all, I have to apologize because my visual looks really bad right now. Shout out to my internet. You guys know it sucks. You guys probably can't hear anything I'm saying, but at least I can argue with Ray and Lawrence here. The quality's good in here. But anyway, I lost my train of thought, to be honest with you. And I was so fired up too. I was ready to talk.
I got a guy, my guy Shrey, wanted to know, was Soldier a first round pick?
Yes, Nate Solder was a first round pick.
All right.
And Nate Solder of the Patriots, not Nate Solder of the Giants. Nate Solder was a phenomenal left tackle on the Patriots.
Yes, he was.
We also
Bill Belichick has roles for people, and he wants people that fit those roles, right? So that's what he drafts for, and he's very good at that. Yeah, of course.
Yes, that's exactly what he's great at. Great at. That's why he built.
He's looking for a certain thing. He's like, okay, this safety can do this for me, so that's why I'm going to draft him in the second round. That's what he did. That's what he did this past year.
We're getting late on we've been on this for going on an hour and a half now. Let's get into two more quarterbacks that's going to start first full seasons. The first guy I think Ray is really excited about talking about. Denver Broncos quarterback, Drew Lock.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Drew Lock. I wasn't high on Drew Lock coming into last season. Not that I wasn't high, I just really didn't care. I was like, he could make it, he could not. I was pretty impressed with him, but I think with what they did for him in the draft this year, Denver is going to look really, really good. Adding the two receivers, having Sutton on the team. I'm excited to see Noah Fant as well, the tight end, going into his sophomore year to see how he can step up and play things. Drew Lock started 5 games last year. He had 1 loss and was to the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. You know what I mean? Besides that, he had
AFC South.
What's that?
Except the AFC South.
Except the AFC South. But
we all beat them except for Jacksonville.
Yeah. But outside of that, though, I mean, good teams lost to Kansas City. Besides that, the kid won 4 games with really one weapon in Sutton. Fant had an okay year. I don't think he quite lived up to his expectation of what he could have been as a tight end. If he can take a step up this year, though, and you look at the 2 guys they added plus Sutton, I think that Drew Lock, just by the pure talent he has around him, he doesn't have to improve as much as I thought he had to improve. He only has to improve a little bit this season. So, and then you add just a dynamic defense at Denver. And I mean, if they're giving him more opportunities to be on the field, I think that he could have a big year.
Joe?
All right. So I'm like Ray, you know, I was not super high on Drew Lock, and to be honest, I'm still not super high on Drew Lock. But if there's one thing that there's no doubt about, is that he has some weapons put around him. Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, like you mentioned, both first-round picks. KJ Hamler as well, another very good receiving option that they drafted a little later. Cortland Sutton that they took a few years ago. So there's no doubt that the weapons that Drew Lock has in front of him are some of the best in the NFL. No doubt about it. From a talent standpoint, a potential standpoint, no doubt about it. We'll see. I think Drew Lock will put in the work over the offseason to become a better quarterback. So I think he'll be solid. I don't think he's going to have the it factor to take him very far. I think he could win a playoff game, maybe. But that's honestly it from that I'm expecting from Drew Lock. I'm not expecting like him to be their answer at quarterback long term, is what I'm saying.
I actually do. After going through and looking at how he played the last, well, as you said, you know, those few games that he played with Denver, and then looking at the weapons they added around him, I actually added him to my stream earlier about under the radar dark horse MVP 2020 candidates. Guys that I believe have an outside shot if things go right for them. You know, obviously you got to have a winning record, and you got to show that, you know, your stats are there. And with the weapons and the team that Denver has, I think it is quite possible Denver could end up being in the playoffs. So that's your first thing that you need to be in order to have an MVP candidate, is be playoff team. And 2, you got to have the stats. And when you got guys, like, don't look at the people that he's going to be throwing to, not just the wide receivers. Look at the running backs that he's got to throw to now. He's got Melvin Gordon and Lindsey. I mean, my goodness, he could close his eyes and throw the football, and somebody's going to be able to catch it, even if he throws it behind him. So I think Drew Lock has a true opportunity here to shine. But as Ray and you were alluding to, there's a few things he still needs to work on. If he doesn't get those, then you're right. I think that he could end up being long term just an average quarterback, but there's potential there. He showed it last year.
I think the problem is I think you could throw any average quarterback in Drew Lock's situation and they would probably have a good year, because the weapons are just that good. So all I'm saying is that if he has a good year, I don't know if I'm going to be sold on him because of the weapons is all I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so hold on. I know there's Patriot fans watching because I shared this link and I have to correct myself here. Otherwise, I'm dead. Okay, going forward. So the Patriots drafted Richard Seymour first overall, or in the first round, which worked out, like Bill Belichick. Vince Wilfork, I apologize to Patriot fans everywhere for not talking about that. Logan Mankins, he drafted in the first round, which worked out. So his first 3 first-round draft picks were out of the park. Patrick, we didn't have a pick in 2009. Devin McCourty was another first-rounder. Then he followed up with Nate Solder after that. Then he followed up with Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower. The next year we didn't have a first-round pick, but he picked Jamie Collins in the second round. 2014 was Dominic Easley, which was a miss, but you picked up Jimmy Garoppolo in the second round. Malcolm Brown, who was actually a great defensive tackle that worked out, you could say. And then I think then we had Cyrus Jones and Derek Rivers, which didn't work. And I think then again, the last 2 years, it's still, you got to wait and see how they work out. But I apologize for missing Richard Seymour and Vince Wilfork and Logan Mankins, guys. Please, please, please don't kill me.
Okay, one more quarterback I want to talk about before we end this stream is a team that none of us expect to go anywhere this year, but last year when he came in, showed potential. I mean, there was times when Gardner Minshew went out on that field and made plays that looked like crazy stuff. I mean,
Minshew mania.
Yeah, there was other moments where Minshew looked like he was completely and utterly lost on the field. So, What are your thoughts? What are your long-term expectations?
So here, let me start off here. I think Gardner Minshew will become like a Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he will become like a Ryan Fitz. That's what I think the Jags are going to be this year. I think that they're going to start Gardner Minshew with the intentions of tanking this season, or the front office is, and Gardner Minshew is going to will his way to a little more wins than they would hope for. And I think he's going to get to like the 5-win mark. And they were hoping for like a 2 or 3 win season because they want to get that number 1 overall pick. I just think Minshew has that little bit of sauce, that little bit of swag, that style that you need to win those games. And I just think that he's going to win more games than the Jags are hoping for right now. So I don't think he's going to be spectacular because the team is terrible around him. It is horrible, but I think he's just going to will his way to like a 16-14 win. So they're going to end up winning a lot more than you might think of the Jags. And it's because of Gardner Minshew.
There's an inconsistency to Gardner Minshew's game. I'm a little bit higher on him than Joe is just because he showed some potential. I mean, again, I watched him play. I saw inconsistencies. If you look at his numbers, they were way better than, let's say, Lamar Jackson's first year. You know what I mean? Like Lamar was under 60% completion. He had like an 84 quarterback rating. That didn't mean he wasn't going to turn into a superstar, right? What's Minshew's stats? 60% completion rating, a 91.2. His interceptions were 21 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. It's not a bad ratio for a young kid in his first year.
That's great.
I think that Joe's correct. If they are planning on tanking, they're going to win too many games with him to tank. But I also believe that they believe in Gardner Minshew. And if he can work out if he can work out a way that he's more his explosive Gardner Minshew that we've seen and not his inconsistent Gardner Minshew, then he's going to be a great quarterback. I'm not prepared to call him Fitzpatrick yet because he only had a year in the league. I mean, Fitzmagic became Fitzmagic his like 10th year, Mr. Princeton in the league. You know what I mean? So it's that's when I'd be prepared. So, I think the next 2 years for Minshew, next season, the season after, will be those telling years of how much he can improve from a consistency standpoint.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair. I honestly, like I said, I think that he's got a chance. The only problem is he's on that rebuild team. I mean, a complete and utter rebuild team where they have some talent, but they got so many holes on that team that it's going to be hard for him to really show what he's truly capable of, because they just got rid of all their weapons.
They did,
Yep.
but we'll have to see. And I'm literally not doing this because Joe's on the stream, but I always compare people to I compare quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, to Lamar Jackson, right? Only because nobody believed me when I said Lamar Jackson was going to be a star. But number two, after his first season, Joe, I still had to sit there and defend the kid. You know what I mean? Because if you look at Lamar Jackson's numbers of 58.2 completions, a 6-3 touchdown interception ratio, and 84.5, that's actually pitiful numbers when you look at the overall whole of what a quarterback should be. And then, he looked like absolute garbage against the San Diego Chargers that season. But I kept saying, give the kid a chance, give the kid a chance. And that's why I always look at those numbers and compare guys like Minshew and Drew Lock to Lamar Jackson, because you can see the jump. I see more potential in Gardner Minshew than I do in Drew Lock, but I'm a lot higher on Drew Lock now. And again, I think if what we saw out of Lamar Jackson his first seasons was moments of brilliance and then moments of inconsistency, and that's what I saw a lot of Lamar Jackson or in Gardner Minshew. Now, I'm not saying Minshew's going to beat Jackson and Mahomes, but if we can see more of that consistent explosive play that made him look really good, and they can put somebody around him, because I'll argue with you that the Ravens defense isn't that great and Lamar Jackson really boosts a lot of guys. I don't think that Gardner is able to do the same thing that Lamar can with the offensive, with the offensive players. But if they can put a team around him, he's good enough for that offense to elevate to better levels.
Wow. Well, so much. Hold on. There's just so many things that were wrong with your statement. Let me get on it. I'm just playing, Ray. I love you. But anyway, the thing that you're not accounting for is that Gardner Minshew and all these guys that, you look at these passing stats, which is fine and dandy if you want to compare Lamar's passing stats in his first season. They weren't good. But you're now looking at his running stats, which was really what he was doing for us. There was times, and I said it even in preseason. I said Lamar Jackson right now is the best player on the field. And I still see that to this day. Obviously, it's not consistent. It's not all the time because he does make mistakes. I'm not saying he's this amazing player. I'm not saying he's always amazing at all the time, but he is no doubt the unanimous league MVP. I love Lamar Jackson. But Gardner Minshew, I just don't think he has that, I'm just faster than you, so I'm just going to outrun you. He doesn't have that, I'm just going to throw this ball because I can beat you even though it's perfect coverage. He doesn't have that X factor, that next level, that a player like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson does. So I don't think he's going to, elevate the Jags to where they need to be, especially with that trash team.
I think you're dismissing his rushing game a little bit. It's not Lamar Jackson-esque. It was still 344 yards in rushing this season on top of his, 3,000 yards in passing. You know what I mean? It's. I think that's a little bit of it. I'm looking at the wrong guy here. No, I can't find the stats. Where is Gardner Minshew? Oh, hold on. Yeah. Sorry, there it is. Yeah, 344 yards. Why did I jump over to Lamar? I don't understand. There we go.
Had more than 344 yards rushing.
No. Yeah. I was looking at Minshew's, and then I jumped to Lamar's stats to look at the passing yards.
Okay.
So 3,200 yards, you know what I mean, plus 344 yards rushing on 67 attempts. Again, played 12 games this year,
and
right?
Had only Chark and with the running back, I can't remember it. Fournette.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Those are the only two decent players on his team at that point.
Yeah, and Fournette
he threw 20, and he threw 21 touchdowns.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like he threw 21 touchdowns. And it is.
And how many of those games did they win? The 12 games that Gardner Minshew started. Not many. I mean, I don't know what the Jags record was. It was probably okay. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think Gardner Minshew he may have a good stat line, and that's fine and dandy.
Hold on, though. But if Baltimore had a shitty defense, Lamar Jackson wouldn't have won as many games his rookie year either. You know what I mean? Now you're talking. Now we're talking a full team sport compared to again. Why I said to you, quarterback wins doesn't mean anything to me because I could turn around and say Tom Brady's more talented than anybody. Then you know what I mean? If you want to go by wins and stats and championships, he's more talented than Mahomes. No, I say he's the GOAT. But he's not more talented from a talented perspective than Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson. I mean, those are freak of nature athletes. You know what I mean? That's why I don't go by wins because now we're going by a game sport. And like I said, I saw Tom Brady throw 500. I break Super Bowl records in yards and lose the Super Bowl because his defense couldn't stop us if we put a team together and went out there and played offense for the Philadelphia Eagles.
So what Ray's actually saying is you put Gardner Minshew on the Ravens, how's he going to do?
I think he does better than he did in Jacksonville. I don't think he's Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's an MVP. But I think he wins more than 6 games with Baltimore. And again, there's nothing wrong with saying Baltimore is a good team. And
we're not doubting that.
It's from being on Baltimore. You know what I mean?
We're not doubting that.
Again, I don't think Minshew's going to be an MVP on Baltimore. That's not
also this Ravens defense that's so great, like it was last year, which helped Lamar win. Yes, they were 4-5 with Joe Flacco as the starter, and that was the same defense. No changes made. Lamar came in. He took us to the playoffs on his back. We would not have made the playoffs without Lamar Jackson his rookie season. Plain and simple. And you can't say the same thing for Gardner. Of course, the Ravens are a more talented team than the Jags. Yeah.
Again, you're not comparing apples to apples. You know what I mean? That's not an apples to apples comparison. You know what? And then guess what? The winning percentage went down when Jalen Ramsey got traded. You know what I mean? Keep Jalen Ramsey when he stopped playing, not even traded, when he stopped playing. And let him play a full season and you could see something different, right? It's not apples to apples on that thing. I mean, Jesus, the Patriots defense dragged Tom Brady's old ass into the playoffs. You know what I mean? But I could turn around and say it was all because of Brady. Because the defense dragged that offense, kicking it. I mean, the offense did everything they could not to make the playoffs. And the defense just was like, no, we're gonna keep going here. We're gonna win games 9-7, and just at ridiculous scores. So it's not an apples to apples.
I thought we were talking about the playoffs this past year, not the Super Bowl the year before.
Well, the same with that Super Bowl. I mean, that Super Bowl. But and don't get me started on Super Bowl MVP and why I think that's such a ridiculous, meaningless award. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's the most meaningless award in the world because they hardly ever give it to the actual MVP on the team. So it means absolutely nothing to me. Brady deserved maybe 1, and I will give him the comeback. You know what I mean? Against, and even though Hightower had a lot to do with that and strip sacking. You know what? You were down 28-3. I'll give it to you. Yeah, Edelman made the greatest catch in, Super Bowl history or one of them. You know what I mean? But I'll give it to you. Every other one, you stop the greatest show on turf and you give the MVP to the quarterback, who got 24 points. You go against Carolina and basically win the game because fucking no one could. The Carolina couldn't do a kickoff and they kicked it out of bounds and gave you the opportunity to come down the field and make sure you put Adam Vinatieri in field goal range again. Andy Reid should be the MVP of their 3rd Super Bowl in his clock management and Donovan McNabb throwing up in the huddle. Super Bowl 49. I mean, if you're gonna just do it on one play alone, how is that not Malcolm Butler? You know what I mean? I don't care if he didn't make a play the whole game. He just won you the friggin' football game, Hightower had a hell of a game. Super Bowl, then you got the Brady's real, to me, deserved Super Bowl MVP. And then the last Super Bowl when friggin' Edelman got it, that was Hightower, Stephon Gilmore, or Kyle Van Noy could have all been co-MVPs and I would have been happy with that. You know what I mean? Or any one of those 3, any combination. But no, let's give it to Julian Edelman in a game when we didn't have a receiving touchdown. You know,
Well,
like,
but he made a catch on third down.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's that one means not the Super Bowl MVP, just from what I've seen with the Patriots, means absolutely nothing to me. Wins, again, to me as a quarterback, wins mean nothing. I think wins mean to me in a sense. Did Lamar Jackson win games that Baltimore shouldn't have won? Probably. I mean, I don't watch him like Joe does, but I'm sure he could pick out this game. It was, Lamar's back. This game was Lamar's back. Absolutely. Did we watch their 6 wins with Gardner? You know what I mean? I'd have to go back and watch those games. And if it was Gardner willing his team to a win, well, then I think he could have maybe fought and got Baltimore into the playoffs. You know what I mean? Again, he would have went to the playoffs with the Baltimore team of this year. Would he have been an MVP? No. You know what I mean? I'm not stupid enough to say, I'm not saying Lamar Jackson's a system quarterback. Like, that's, you know what I mean? That'd be a ridiculous statement to make. He is the offense. But they finally have an offensive coordinator who has some creativity, who can use a guy who's mobile. And I love your tight ends in Baltimore. You know what I mean? I love Ingram back in a running back. And you got Hollywood Brown, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that Gardner on that team could have brought them to the playoffs. What did they win around? I don't know. He won't win MVP, though. I'll tell you that much. He's not going to have Lamar Jackson numbers.
No, yeah, the Ravens probably would have still had a great season. They definitely wouldn't have won 14 games, maybe more like 10, 11 with Minshew. But yeah, I agree with you. That's fair.
Well, Minshew's more of a traditional style quarterback. I mean, you're not going to set him up for consistent play after play after play after play of RPOs, like you do with Jackson. Whereas Minshew, I mean, yes, he could take off and run with the football, but he's not going to, be in that situation where he's reading the defense and deciding whether he's going to hold on to the ball and take off for 50 yards for a touchdown or not.
Yeah.
Any closing statements from you guys? We're closing in on 2 hours, guys.
Yeah, my closing statement is as much as I like to throw stats and everything at people, I like to look at the way players play games. I don't trust Joe Burrow. I trust Tua more, but I think his health issues could be a problem. If I could pick any quarterback I wanted in the last 3 years of drafts, obviously Patrick Mahomes would be up on my list, but I tell you the truth, I didn't know much about Patrick Mahomes going into that draft. So I'll admit I probably wouldn't have taken him. If we go back all the way to 2018 and Joe Burrow had the exact same year that he had with LSU this year going into that year and all the other quarterbacks that were picked, I still would have picked Lamar Jackson over Joe Burrow just because I knew how explosive that kid could be. Joe Burrow, to me, is going to be a draft bust. In 3 years, maybe I'm wrong. I'll eat it. I will eat it if I'm wrong. But that's my final thoughts on all of that.
So you have more sense than Dan Orlovsky, basically, because he would take 4 quarterbacks over Lamar Jackson. But anyway, so I think we covered a good amount today. We talked about a lot of quarterbacks. We had some opinions, some hot takes, we had a lot of fun today, man. And I think we always do when we all get together. But yeah, man, I mean, we'll see what these young quarterbacks do. I hope nothing but success for these guys. I always want guys to succeed. I don't want guys to fail. I just have opinions on players that if I think they can succeed, I'll let you know. If I don't think they can succeed, I'll also let you know. So that's how I feel, man. But again, at the end of the day, it's no hard feelings. I hope everybody succeeds. Is what it all comes down to.
All right. So I want to thank again Ray Rauth and Joe Noobo for joining me here on this stream. You could follow them on Sportscastr and Twitter and on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, their links are down in the description at the bottom. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen with Ray Rauth and Joe Noobo. I want you to have a good one.
See you later.